name is Tony Covey. I'm an EA as well as founder and CEO of TM Tax Practices. And today we're going to be talking about Form 1099. We're going to be answering 4 questions for you. And those are, what is a 1099? Do I need to file a 1099? How and when to file a 1099? And lastly, are there any penalties associated with the late filing or non-compliance with regards to 1099s? What is a 1099? The Form 1099 series was created by the IRS to ensure that various types of payments would be reported to the IRS. Now, it's typically the payer who's going to be filing and reporting on the 1099 to the payer or recipient. And this is going to provide the IRS with some basic information. And that includes, your name, your business name, your address, your taxpayer identification number, such as your social security number, EIN, as well as the amount that was paid and why. The most common forms are going to be the 1099 NEC, miscellaneous, INT, 1099-R, and the 1098. Also, it's going to include the Form W-9, and we are going to talk about all of those forms here today in this video. Now, the W-9 is going to be the request for the taxpayer information and certification. The W-9 is used prior to the 1099 because the W-9 is going to be what gives the payer the information to produce the 1099. So this is where you're doing 2 things as the payer. You're providing that basic information we talked about, name, address, taxpayer identification number, and you're certifying that everything you stated in the W-9 is accurate and true. Now, the Form W-9 is kept on file by the payer. There is no need to file that form with the IRS, but you do need to make sure you have it on file in the event the IRS does request it. Now, we do recommend that you get the Form W-9 from your contractor or service provider prior to allowing them to commence with work. At the very least, you don't want to wait until it's time to file the 1099 to request the W-9 from your contractor or service provider. So now we're going to get into the 1099 specifically. We're going to start with the 1099 miscellaneous and 1099 NEC. So the 1099 miscellaneous is most commonly used to report royalties, rents, and payments to attorneys. Now, the 1099 miscellaneous is used for other things, but again, these are the most common uses, so that's what we're talking about here today. Now, royalties, if you're paying out royalties over $10, then you're going to be required to file a 1099 miscellaneous. When it comes to rents and payments to attorneys, then you're going to be required to file a 1099 miscellaneous for any amount over $600. Now, in the event that you paid amounts for royalties, rents, or payments to attorneys, and there was withholding, you had tax withheld from those payments, you are going to be required to file the 1099 regardless of the amount. There are a couple of exceptions to these requirements. And the first is going to be if the payments were made by credit card. If payments were made by credit card, those payments are going to be reported to you on the Form 1099-K, so you do not need to worry about doing a 1099 miscellaneous or an NEC for that. Now, the second exception is going to be payments made to a C or S corporation, unless, of course, those payments are for legal or medical services. The 1099 NEC is very similar to the 1099 miscellaneous, except the 1099 NEC is for non-employee compensation. So this is going to be for payments made for services by a non-W-2 employee for payments over $600, much like your rents and payments to attorneys. So now we're going to talk about the Form 1099 INT and the 1098. Both of these forms are used to report interest payments. The difference is going to be what the loan is for. Now, the Form 1099 INT is typically used to report business loan. Now, the 1098 is going to be used to report interest payments made for a loan for real estate, or where real estate is used to secure the loan. So rounding out our 1099 conversation with Form 1099-R. The 1099-R is going to be for retirement plans, annuities, profit sharing plans, IRAs, etc. So most commonly, we are going to be looking at self-directed IRAs or small business retirement plans such as solo 401ks or profit sharing plans. Now for larger plans, you're going to usually have a custodian or a plan administrator that's going to be taking care of this type of paperwork for you. But if you have a solo 401k or you have a self-directed IRA, you might be responsible for reporting on Form 1099-R. So what types of things are we reporting on 1099-R? We're going to be reporting any distributions, right? So that's going to be including your non-taxable distributions, your Roth distributions, your early distributions, required minimum distributions, maybe any default participant loan distributions. If there was money taken out of your retirement plan, you are likely going to be required to file a 1099-R. That is to include rollover contributions and conversions. And when we talk about rollovers, we're talking about in plan. So if you are doing a traditional to a Roth, and we're talking about out of plan. So if you are just switching your account from, say, Schwab to TD Ameritrade, that conversion or rollover is going to have to be reported on the 1099-R. Also, a very common type of rollover is going to be a direct or an indirect rollover, right? So the direct rollover is trustee to trustee. The other is the indirect rollover. Now, the indirect rollover is going to be an example of you taking the funds out of the retirement plan and putting them into another plan. Now, you have to make that transaction complete within 60 days. And if you've done that, that is referred to as an indirect rollover, and it is going to be reported on the Form 1099-R. So any distributions and any rollovers, direct, indirect, in plan, out of plan, will need to be reported on the Form 1099-R. Now we're going to answer the question, how do I file? And there's going to be two steps to that. You're going to be required to send that 1099 to the recipient or the payee, and you're also going to be required to file that form with the IRS. So to the recipient is going to be any way you so choose. You can send it by postal mail, email, file share, any way you choose to send that, you can. However, you do need to make sure that you send it to the recipient by January 31st. To the IRS, or filing with IRS, you can do by postal mail or electronically. Those are your two options. Now, if you are going to file by postal mail, you can only do so if you are filing less than 250 1099s. You are going to have to order the forms from the IRS. You cannot simply print them off, and that is because of the way IRS receives and processes their 1099s. So you do need to order the forms from IRS. You could do so from their website. Now, once you order the forms, receive the forms, you fill them out properly, you're going to mail them to one of 3 available addresses to send to IRS, and the address you choose will be based on your business address. Now, your second option is to file electronically, which you actually are required to do if you are filing more than 250 1099s. And IRS does encourage electronic filing for you. So you are able to file your 1099s yourself by mailing them via postal mail, filing them electronically using software, or filing it electronically using the new IRS portal when it's ready, or you can use your tax professional. So now our very last question. Are there any penalties associated with the late filing or non-compliance of the Form 1099 series? And the answer to that is yes. There can be penalties associated with late filing and non-compliance. And those penalties are going to be $50 for up to 30 days late, $110 for 31 days to August 1st, and $290 for filing after August 1st. Lastly, if there is an intentional disregard, so you intentionally did not file the 1099, there will be a penalty of $580. The difference here is going to be if you were unaware of the filing requirement, you're going to have the $290 penalty. However, if it's proven that you were aware that you had the filing requirement and you simply did not file, you are going to be looking at the $580 penalty. That's the intentional disregard. Now, IRS may also impose interest on those penalties, and that interest charged is going to depend on the amount of the payment and the timeline of how late the payment is. The reason is those interest rates do vary. However, you can keep up to date with what those rates are by going to the IRS website, irs.gov, and typing into the search bar, applicable federal rates. Now, there is a 30-day extension available. However, that extension is not an automatic extension for Forms 1099 NEC or Form W-2. You will have to request the extension. However, for the Forms 1099 NEC and W-2, it is very rare that IRS will allow an extension. The reason is because this is the income statement required by another party to file their tax return on time. All right, guys, so we covered all 4 of our questions in this video, and I hope that you found it helpful and useful information. So if you have any other questions or would like to discuss any of these topics further, please feel free to contact us, leave us a comment, and hey, don't forget to like and subscribe.